Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay, the Nocturnal Guy, and this is going to be a long video. Just fair warning, there's going to be a lot of information that comes your way. I'm going to try and keep it as succinct as possible, but there is definitely going to be a data download at the end of this video. This is going to be the 18650 Weaponlight comparison video. I have, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 12 lights that run the gamut of all of the major 18650 options on the market. First and foremost, I want to make it clear, I am not a subject matter expert. I am a subject matter enthusiast. I have experience using all of these lights except one, I think, all but one. I have experience shooting them. I have experience running through low light courses of fire with them, but I am not by any means an expert on how weapon lights function. So that's the first and foremost thing. Second thing, my relationship with the companies that are going to be involved, I have no relationship with any of them. I'm not paid by any of them. Every single light here was either paid for with my own money or was lent to me by friends I have on Facebook who are also not affiliated with any of these companies. So there's no, this isn't a paid advertisement or a paid review of any of these whatsoever. The actual comparison is going to be a light performance comparison, not a durability test or a torture test or anything like that. All of these lights, with two exceptions that I've had personal experience with and that I've corroborated with other people who have vastly more experience with than myself, other than those two, which I will talk about when we go through. The rest of these are all well established as reliable and durable. They can handle recoil. I shoot suppressed, so they can all handle shooting suppressed fire, and they can handle the heat of sitting next to a suppressor without any issues. So I'm not really going to get into that part of it. I think all of these have kind of met that threshold for me. They're all reliable, they're all durable, with a few caveats, and even those are case specific. They're not broad stroke caveats, but I'll get into them when we get to that point. As far as this goes, this is kind of a test and comparison to show how candela and lumens interact with each other in a weapon light's overall performance. And what a lot of people don't understand is how those two measurements of light, why those two measurements of light are important, and how the two different measurements of light contribute to the overall performance of the light. So for the longest time, it has been a war of lumens. Lumens has been the standard. And over the years, it has been higher and higher and higher lumen counts. When I was in the Marines in the early 2000s, a candescent bulb that puts out 60 to 100 lumens was top of the line. That was the state of the art. And you know, we did work with them. Everyone did work with them back then. Since LEDs have come to the market in the past probably 10, 15 years, that performance threshold that was capped out at about 100 lumens, 120 lumens with incandescent bulbs has absolutely skyrocketed. And so now we're on a whole different level and a whole different playing field. So for the longest time, lumens was the big thing, and the more lumens you had, the more light your light put out in the direction that you were pointing your light or your weapon. What has recently been understood, how the paradigm has shifted has been from raw lumen power to candela. And candela is a measurement of how well that light focuses light on your target. So you could think of lumens as raw horsepower and candela as horsepower at the wheels. One is the potential and one is the actual work being done on target. Which is why you want a nice high candela rating to get light to the target, to punch through photonic barriers, to deny visual planes and all those different things. Candela is king when it comes to those aspects. That being said, there is a balance. You can go too far in the candela direction and not high enough in the lumen direction, and there are examples of that in this test, and you'll see those. Now, when I choose weapon lights, I'm coming at this from the philosophy of a home defense shooter, because I am a home defense shooter. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not active duty military. I don't have a professional operative application of my weapons, so I come at this very specifically from that standpoint. My philosophy when it comes to that is I prefer, when I'm choosing a weapon light, I prefer to maximize my candela, and even if that comes at the sacrifice of some lumens, because I'm going to be using that light and that weapon in a familiar space, that I don't have to have the wide, bright peripheral light in order to navigate that space, because I already know it very well. And the light that I am using is more for target identification, identifying a target that I'm pointing my weapon at. I can use the spill of some of these higher candela lights, even though their raw lumen power isn't that great, as a way to navigate. But that navigational light, that peripheral light, is enough for my home defense use. If I was on a team clearing unfamiliar spaces and running with multiple shooters and multiple intersecting firing lines, having a wider spill is more of a benefit in that application, because you are moving through unfamiliar spaces with unpredictable lighting conditions, and having that peripheral light will allow you to see potential threats in those unfamiliar spaces, and it also allows a wider range of margin of error or margin of safety. When you're dealing with multiple shooters, it makes it easier to see where those lanes of fire are, and it makes it easier to overlap those lines of fire and reduce the risk of flagging your teammates while you're pushing through a space. So that's basically my philosophy when it comes to choosing high candela, lower lumens versus high lumens, lower candela. Although, to be perfectly honest, a lot of these lights at this point kind of push all of that differential between high and low kind of out the window, and you'll see as we go. So what I'm going to be testing is I'm going to start with a beam profile test at 10, 25, 50, and 100 meters. And I'm going to be using these IPSC targets. I'm not going to be using the white side. I'm going to be using the brown side, but I'm going to be showing that beam profile at those different distances. And those will be photographically recorded with fixed camera settings so that all the exposures are the same. And there'll also be some video footage to show how the different lights interact as the distance increases or decreases. And I'll have footage of all of that. The next test that I'll be doing is a peak beam output of the light measured at 10 meters with my, where the heck is that thing? It's put away. I have a lux meter. It might be charging, but I have a lux meter that I will be using to measure at 10 meters the peak beam output at the center of the beam when in those first 30 seconds of firing the light. That way you're getting the maximum, the top level output, and you'll get a measurement of that output. And then I'll do the ANSI math to get the candela rating at 10 meters. And I'm going to do that for all the different lights, and I will put those all together in data points for everyone to see. And then I'm going to do a battery runtime test, which is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to put a fresh battery in the light, turn it on. I'm going to have it sit in the camera with the time lapse going with a timer that you'll be able to see, and you'll be able to watch the timer as it goes through the thermal throttling. You'll be able to see the thermal drop down, what the time is of that, how drastic it is, how much light is lost in that thermal throttle, and then how long it lasts throughout the battery life. Most of these lights are rated for between an hour and a half of runtime, but that isn't runtime at full power. That's the full runtime of the battery. And so by the time it gets to the end of that 75 to 90 minutes, whatever the rating is, that's going to be about 10%, between 15 and 10% of the light when it gets to that point. And then I'm going to do a test at 50 meters at the end of my driveway, where I'm going to have one of these targets in front of my pickup truck with the high beams blasting up the driveway toward the camera, and we'll be able to see how each of these different lights deals with that photonic barrier. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have my wife blast me in the face with each of these lights at 10 meters, 25 meters, and 50 meters to see what the comparative visual plane denial capabilities are of each light at all those different distances. And that's the test that I'm looking forward to the least. So let's get into the different lights that we're going to be testing. I'm going to be testing, to start off, I'm going to test the Surefire dual fuel head. This is their flagship. This is their flagship head until the turbos come out. Nobody has those yet, so I can't really test those. I do plan on adding a turbo to the test video as an addendum at a later date when they become available. But the Surefire dual fuel, is rated at 1,500 lumens and 16,000 candela. 10 years ago, that would have been amazing. Now, it's kind of disappointing. That will be the first one to test. And to be fair, there are applications where this could be a perfectly functional weapon light. And we'll get into that when we actually do the testing footage. Then the next one is going to be the Arisaka E2 XTL. This is their flagship 18650 light. It's manufactured by Malkoff Devices. Gene Malkoff is kind of like the OG of flashlight manufacture and design. He's been in the game for a long time, and his stuff is very well regarded across the spectrum. This one is rated at 500 lumens, so it's a third of the lumen output, but it's rated at 55,000 candela. So this is over 3 times the candela throughput of the dual fuel Surefire. And then we have the Streamlight HLX. This is a handheld one. I went and got it on Amazon. I sold my rail mount HLX years ago. I've had some issues with these in the past when it comes to reliability to the tape switch and recoil flicker and stuff like that. There are ways to get around those things. I might do a specific review or video of how to maximize the reliability of your Streamlight in a future video. But for this video, I'm just going to be showing how they function from a beam standpoint. The handheld version has the same reflector and outputs rating as the Weaponlight, so this will be the same. Next, we have the Cloud Defensive Owl. This is a big boy. This is Cloud Defensive's. This was Cloud Defensive's flagship light for a couple of years until they came out with their Rain Scout lights. This is still one that has a bit of a cult following, but it also has people that aren't really fans of it for a couple of different reasons. Durability and reliability is not one of those reasons. This thing is absurdly reliable, absolutely bomb-proof, bulletproof. Don't say bulletproof. Bomb-proof and very, very, very drop resistant. I guess we could say that. Very reliable, very durable, and it is rated at 1,250 lumens and 50,000 candela, 50,000 plus. The product literature doesn't give an exact rating. It says it's at least 50,000, and I'll go off what they're saying, but I will verify with the Lux meter. So that's the Cloud Defensive Owl. And then the next one, this is another handheld that uses the same reflector and has the same ratings as, hold on one second. Give me them squeezies, you stinker. Okay. Tell Addison hurry and give me hugs too.
I heard a baby noise upstairs.
Oh, okay. Go back upstairs. I'm working. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to go do some kid stuff. Okay, where were we? We are on CD, the Cloud Defensive, the Rain 2.0. Okay, this is their mission configurable handheld, but this is using the high candela head, which again has the same output rating as their Rain 2.0. So this one is rated at 1,100 lumens and 71,000 candela, which is pretty heavy duty. This one also, oddly, is rated at 150 minutes of runtime per the product literature, and all the rest of these have all been between 75 and 90 minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how that 150-minute rating plays out. Then we have Weaponlight. We'll start with the OKW. This is my OKW. This is an old Gen 1 pre-serialized, pre-release model. I've been using it for a couple years. Love that light. Got a lot of work out of it. That one is rated at 680 lumens and 69,000 candela. Fantastic light, great for defensive use, can reach out nice and far. Then there is also the PLH V2, which is their higher lumen, lower candela output head. This one is great for handgun. It's great for handheld lights. It's great for CQB specific stuff. Really good for if you were on a team with multiple members and you wanted that nice wide flood. Great head for that. Also a really good head for home defense. Just my personal preference is for the higher candela. Let's see. The next one we have the Well Tool offerings, and we have their two high candela heads. The first one is their LH1. This one is rated at 686 lumens and 89,600 candela. So this is basically Well Tool's take on an OKW philosophy of light output, turned up to 11 or 12. A little bit more lumens, about 20,000 more candela. So another very good light. And then they have the new LH8, which is kind of their flagship now. This is rated for 1,250 lumens and 83,900 candela. They also have two versions of this, kind of like how Weaponlight has the OKW and the PLH V2. They have the 5700 Kelvin version of this, which is this one. That is a slightly warmer light temperature. Might be my favorite light temperature out of all of these. Really, really nice. But they also have a 6500 Kelvin light, which is higher lumen, but lower on the candela. I think it's 1750 lumens and 77,000 candela versus this, which is the 1250 and 83,900. But I'm a shameless whore for candela, so I'll always pick the highest candela option that I can. That's why I got the 5700 over the 6500. And then we have the two LEP options. Now, where the heck is that other one at? Did it fall off? It fell off the table. Okay. Got it. Okay. So we have the Welltool LH3, which is rated at 325 lumens and 196,000 candela. Now, some of you may have seen my initial impressions video and my comparison of this with my OKW that I recorded last year, maybe a little earlier than that. But essentially, if you've seen that video, you know how I feel about this light, and I'll go through it as the test goes on. But this is a pure hotspot light, zero functional spill with this bad boy, but 196,000 candela of hotspot. Very, very crazy stuff. And then finally, we have the Grand Poobah. We have the big moneymaker. We have the Z-Bolt Blazer LEP 450. This is rated at 600 lumens, which isn't bad, and 415,000 candela with the native lens with no diffuser. Now this one, I bought the kit that comes with the two diffusers. It comes with a 30 degree and a 50 degree diffuser. And I'll show those different diffusers when the testing comes in. But basically, the lens itself gives you a 3 degree spread. Then you have the 30 degree and the 50 degree diffuser that will, you twist them on and it adds some functional spill to your output. I'm not sure how it affects the overall candela rating. I'm sure it has a drop off. It has to have a negative effect on overall candela because you only have a certain amount of lumens and you only have a certain amount of candela. Once you start spreading that light out, the candela rating drops. So I've tested the 30 and the 50 degree diffusers. I personally strongly prefer the 50 degree. I think the Blazer with the 50 degree diffuser is the best option for a home defense light. It gives you functional spill and keeps that white hot spot. But I'll show that as well. And then we've got a couple of little wild card lights, mostly just for content. I've got an X300. This is a 1,000 lumen X300. These are rated for 1,000 lumens and 11,300 candela, between 11 and 12,000 candela, depending on who you get the measurement from. But this is pretty much the grand standard of pistol lights. It doesn't have the output of any of these, but it'll be interesting to see how it measures up. And I love this light. I've had this one for a while. It's probably the third one that I've had. This is the one that has the least wear and tear. But it's a good light. And then we have this little guy here. It's a Noctagon KR1 EDC light. It has a digital, it has an electronic button, and it's rated for 100,000 candela, and I think 1,200 lumens, something like that. Nifty little light. There are some things that I don't like about it, mostly with the button interface. Definitely not a defensive light. I would never consider this as a defensive light. This is a utility light at best. But it does have really, really good output, and I'll bring that into compare. And then the last light I'm going to do is this little guy. All of the lights that I'm testing are going to be tested with the same batteries. They're all going to be running Samsung 30Qs. I've got, 20 of them, but they're all flat tops. So I had to go buy some button tops because the Streamlight and the Surefire won't function with flat top batteries just because of the way their springs are designed. So I bought some from Lithium Ion Wholesale, and they sent me this light as a gift because I buy from them quite a bit. This might be the most terrible 18650 flashlight that I've ever held. I'll get into it. It's gnarly. It's got one of those sliding focusing bezels, and the bezel is crenulated. It's got a crenulated bezel, but the aluminum is so thin that it feels like I could bend it with just my thumb. I feel like I could crush it like a Coke can in my hand when it doesn't have a battery in it, and it's just utterly terrible, really, really bad. And the other thing is, if you focus it all the way, it literally projects the shape of the diode on whatever you're looking at. So instead of being a functional light, it's like a shadow puppet show of just the light. It's what a free flashlight would be. It's absolutely what a free flashlight would be. Utter garbage. So those are all the test lights that I'm going to be testing, and those are the parameters. It's going to take a couple of days, maybe a week or so, to get all of the footage put together. But I think you guys are going to be really happy with what you see. Bear in mind, there are a dozen lights here that I'm going to be testing. So if it feels like it's a long video already, it's going to get longer. So there will be a TLDR or a TLDW at the end where I basically run down my impressions on all of these, and then if you don't want to go through all the minutia, then just skip to that, and I'll annotate it at the end. So there you have it. I'm gonna go start setting up targets, and I'm gonna start getting some footage put together, and I will see you outside.